I saw my wife kiss another man at the country club. I walked out without a word. By spring, I'd lose 200 acres but keep my soul. My name's Earl Hutchins. I'm 67 years old, third generation on 640 acres along the Montana-Wyoming line, the kind of land that breaks your back and builds your character, my granddad used to say. He homesteaded it in 1947, carved his initials in the barn beam with a pocket knife. JH. Those letters are still there. That January night, the wind was howling like it does up here when winter settles in mean, 12 degrees, the kind of cold that makes fence wire sing when you touch it. I didn't want to go to the Broken Spur Club for the Stock Growers Association dinner. Told Diane I was tired, had an early morning checking cattle. She insisted, said she was coordinating the event, needed me there for appearances. I should have trusted my gut. I saw them in the coat check alcove. Not a quick peck, a real kiss. The kind that tells a story. Her hand on his jaw, his arm around her waist, that new turquoise bracelet catching the chandelier light, and behind them on the bench, I could see it clear as day, his folder, blueprints spilling out the edge. Travis Kern, 42 years old, commercial real estate developer, slick boots that never seen mud. Marcus clapped my shoulder. "Earl, you coming to the bar?" I walked out, drove home through a blizzard with my hands so tight on the wheel my knuckles went white. The heater rattled. Snow erased my tire tracks soon as I made them. I didn't say a word that night. Silence is a bullet you load slow. The next morning, I was up before dawn like always. Habit doesn't care about heartbreak. Coffee brewing, thermos filled, work gloves pulled on, the left ones worn thin at the fingertips where I grip wire. Been meaning to stitch it. Keep forgetting. I walk the fence line same as I have every morning for 40 years. The wire runs north of the ridgeline, where Granddad planted that first post, 640 acres. Not the biggest spread, but it's ours. Was ours. Hell, I don't even know what to call it anymore. The wind cut across the high plains, that particular whistle it makes through gapwood. My breath came out in clouds. Frozen mud crunched under my boots. I counted head like I always do. 83 Herefords, all accounted for. One of the younger cows had ice crusted on her muzzle. She looked at me with those big dark eyes like she knew something was wrong. "Morning, ladies," I said. Talking to cattle makes you seem crazy, but I've been doing it so long I don't care. Let's see if we all made it through. I stopped at the north corner. The wire was sagging. Not broke, just loose. That's unusual. I keep a tight fence, always have. I tested the tension with my glove, felt the barbs press through the worn leather. Someone had cut it. Not all the way through, just weakened it. Fresh cut, too. The wire still bright where the pliers bit. I tried to count the cows again. Got to 57 and lost track. Started over. Made it to 42 before my mind wandered back to that alcove. Her laugh, his hand, that bracelet I'd never seen before. The coffee in my thermos tasted like rust, probably the water heater going out. Or maybe everything just tastes wrong when your life's coming apart. I noticed other things that morning I'd missed before. The way the light hit certain fence posts, how, the cattle moved around the feed I'd put out yesterday. Some of it untouched, frozen solid. Small things, the kind of details you see when the big picture stops making sense. By the time I got back to the house, Diane was making breakfast. I could smell bacon from the driveway. That and something else. Some perfume I didn't recognize. Expensive. Not the kind you buy at the drugstore in town. She was humming, actually humming, like nothing happened. Like I hadn't seen what I'd seen. The kitchen was warm, almost too warm. She'd turned the heat up. We usually keep it at 65 to save on propane. She was wearing that bracelet, turquoise stones set in silver, at breakfast. Diane never wore jewelry at breakfast, said it got in the way of cooking. "Morning," she said. Cheerful, too cheerful. "You were up early." Same time as always. I hung my coat on the hook by the door, set my gloves on the counter. "Coffee's fresh. How'd the fence check go?" "Fine." She slid eggs onto a plate, bacon, toast, my usual. Everything normal except nothing was normal. I sat down. She sat across from me, that smile still on her face. The same smile from our wedding day, I realized. The same one from our first date, from the morning after our honeymoon, from 1,000 ordinary mornings. When had it become a mask? "You have a good time at the club last night?" I asked, kept my voice level. "Oh, the usual. Boring speeches about cattle futures and grain prices." She sipped her coffee. "You left early. Everything okay?" "Tired." "You're always tired, Earl." There was an edge there. Faint, but there. "We should talk about that estate planning thing. Vera from the bank called yesterday, said we need to get the paperwork signed." estate planning. We'd been putting it off for years. Diane kept pushing it, said we needed to get organized, think about our legacy. I'd always figured there was time. What kind of paperwork? Just property stuff, making sure everything's in order for when we're gone. She buttered her toast. It's responsible, you know. We're not getting any younger. 67 and 61. She was right about that. I'll look at it, I said. She smiled again. Good. I'll set up a time with Vera next week. I watched her eat, noticed how she kept touching that bracelet, spinning it on her wrist. She caught me looking. You like it? I bought it at that boutique in town. Treated myself. It's nice. I thought I deserved something pretty. God knows there's not much pretty out here. She meant the ranch, our home, Granddad's legacy. I didn't argue, just finished my eggs and went out to the barn. Had work to do, fence to mend, wire to tighten. The wire was sagging in more places than I'd thought. 3 days later, I went into town for feed. Stopped at Molly's Diner for coffee like I do every Thursday. Been going there 30 years. Molly knows my order before I sit down. But that morning when I walked in, the place went quiet. Not silent, just that particular kind of hush when people stop mid-sentence and find something fascinating about their plates. The bell over the door jingled. Fluorescent lights hummed. Someone's fork scraped ceramic. I took my usual spot at the counter. Molly poured coffee without meeting my eyes. The pot rattled against the rim of the cup. She's 72, hands steady as bedrock. They weren't steady now. Morning, Earl. Molly. Behind me, voices picked up again. Whispers, mostly. I caught fragments. Travis Kern's truck was parked there till 2 in the morning. Shame, really, after all these years. Always thought she was too good for ranch life. The coffee was burnt, or maybe everything just tastes like ash when you're the subject of gossip. I could smell it, though. That diner smell of old grease and weak coffee and something frying on the griddle. Usually, that smell means comfort. Home, community, not today. Marcus slid onto the stool next to me, didn't say anything for a minute, just sat there, both of us staring at the menu board we've memorized years ago. Heard about the club, Earl. His voice was low. Damn shame. Yep. You need anything, brother? You call me. Understand? I nodded, didn't trust my voice. He dropped a 10 on the counter and left. I sat there, another minute, then followed. Left the coffee untouched. Molly didn't charge me. That somehow made it worse. Pity's worse than hate. Hate you can fight. Pity just sits there like mud. I drove straight to the county clerk's office. Vera Mills had left 3 messages on my cell phone. I don't check it much, mostly keep it for emergencies. Guess this qualified. The county building smelled like old paper and floor wax. Fluorescent lights flickered in the hallway. My boots squeaked on the linoleum. Vera was waiting in her office at the stockgrowers' bank next door. She'd moved the meeting there. More private, she'd said on the last message. She stood when I came in. Vera's 64, knew my father, came to his funeral. She's got a soft voice but hard eyes, the kind that see through bullshit. Earl, sit down. I sat. She had papers spread across her desk, official-looking things with seals and stamps and dense paragraphs of legal language that might as well be Chinese. I'm going to be straight with you, she said. Your property taxes just jumped from $4,200 to $28,000. The number didn't make sense. I looked at her, waiting for the joke. There's been a rezone filing. Your land is now classified as mixed-use commercial. That changes the assessment basis. I didn't file any rezone. No. She slid a paper toward me. But Diane did. 6 weeks ago, January 3rd, her signature is notarized. I stared at the document. There it was. That swirl on the D I'd seen on birthday cards and anniversary letters, and the deed to our first truck. Her handwriting on the line that said co-owner. When's it due? June 1st, 90 days from the approval date. She paused. Earl, there's more. She showed me another paper, co-applicant line, Travis Kern, Kern Development LLC. My hands went numb, just completely numb, like I'd stuck them in a snowbank. He's been buying up ranches, Vera said quietly. The Rourke place 2 years ago. Mendez spread last year, same pattern every time. Ray zone, tax spike, force a sale. You're telling me my wife helped him steal my land. I'm telling you she signed documents that enabled it. Vera's voice was gentle, professional. Whether she understood what she was signing, I can't say, but her name's on the filing. The office was too quiet. I could hear the wall clock tick, could hear my own breathing. The radiator clanked and hissed. Can I fight it? You can try, but Earl, these filings are legal. The rezone was approved by the county. You'd need a lawyer, and even then... She stopped. The tax bill is real. You'll owe it whether the rezone stands or not. $28,000. I ran the numbers in my head. Cattle prices, operating costs, feed, the drought last summer, the new tractor transmission. I didn't have it, not even close. How long do I have to come up with it? June 1st. But realistically, if you can't pay, the county files a lien. After that, it goes to auction. Travis will buy it for pennies on the dollar. I stood up, legs shaky but functional. Thank you for telling me straight, Vera. Earl, I need to go home now. I drove back through town, past Molly's, past the feed store, past the church where Diane and I got married 36 years ago. 6 weeks. The kiss wasn't a mistake. It was a signature party. I didn't go home. Couldn't face that empty kitchen, Diane's humming, the pretense that our life wasn't a carefully constructed lie. I drove out to Hank Dorsey's place instead. Hank's been my neighbor for 40 years. His property runs along my western boundary, 700 acres of good grazing land, and a man who knows when to talk and when to shut up. His truck was in the driveway when I pulled up, exhaust puffing white clouds in the cold air. He'd just gotten back from somewhere. He climbed out slow, the way men in their 70s do when their knees remember every fence post they ever dug. Earl. He nodded. Didn't ask why I was there, just waited. You got coffee on? Always. We went inside. His place smells like wood smoke and old leather. Been a widower 8 years now. Keeps the house clean but plain. No decorations, no fuss, just function. He poured 2 mugs. We sat at his kitchen table, scarred oak that's probably older than both of us combined. Outside the window, I could see his cattle moving slow across the pasture. The wind pushed snow devils across the frozen ground. Heard about the club, Hank said finally. Seems everybody has. Want to talk about it? Not particularly. I wrapped my hands around the mug. The heat felt good. But I need to tell you something anyway. I laid it out. The rezone, the taxes, Travis Kern, Diane's signature on the paperwork. Hank listened without interrupting, his face getting harder with each sentence. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Then he got up and went to a drawer in his kitchen, pulled out a folder, set it on the table between us. Been doing some asking around, he said. Travis Kern's been sniffing around ranches for 3 years now. Always the same story. Taxes spike. Owner can't pay. Kern buys it for nothing and flips it to developers from California. He opened the folder. Newspaper clippings, property records, notes in Hank's blocky handwriting. Rourke Place sold 2021, Mendez spread 2023. Both times the taxes jumped right before the sale. Both times Kern Development was the buyer. He tapped the papers. I've been compiling names, thinking about calling Deputy Roy. This smells wrong. You've been investigating? Someone had to. He looked at me straight. You helped me during the drought in 19, shared your water rights, didn't charge me a dime. I don't forget that kind of thing, Earl. Neighbors help neighbors. Something in my chest loosened just a fraction. Not hope exactly, but maybe the knowledge that I wasn't completely alone. I can put in $5,000, Hank said, toward your tax bill. It's not much, but, Hank, I can't. You can and you will. I'm not asking. He refilled both mugs. We'll figure this out, but you need to understand something. This isn't just about money. Travis Kern is systematic. He's got a pattern. That means he's got weaknesses. We spent the next hour going through Hank's notes. By the time I left, the sun was setting, painting the snow orange and purple. My phone buzzed as I climbed into my truck. A Seattle number. I almost didn't answer. Dad? I had to pull over, literally had to stop the truck because my hands started shaking. Sarah, my daughter, 35 years old, environmental lawyer, living 2 states away. We hadn't spoken in 5 years. Not since the fight about her leaving the ranch, choosing city life, abandoning everything I'd tried to build for her. Sarah, I heard. Her voice was older than I remembered, steadier. Marcus's wife called me, told me about Mom, about the taxes. I couldn't speak. My throat had closed up completely. Dad, I'm so sorry. I know we haven't talked, but this is wrong. What she did is wrong. You don't need to apologize for her. I'm not. She paused. I could hear traffic in the background, city sounds, horns and sirens, and the hum of a world I've never understood. I'm apologizing for me, for leaving, for not calling. You had your reasons. Yeah, and they seem pretty small right now. She cleared her throat. Listen, I reviewed Montana property law today. If you'll let me, I'd like to help. Look at the rezone filing. See if there's any way to challenge it. 5 years of silence. 5 years of hurt and pride and stubborn anger on both sides. And here she was, offering help I hadn't asked for and probably didn't deserve. You don't have to do that. I know, but I want to. Another pause. If you'll let me. I looked out at the ranch land stretching to the horizon. Granddad's land, my land. Maybe someday her land, if there was anything left to inherit. Yeah, I said. Yeah, I'd appreciate that. After we hung up, I sat in that truck for another 10 minutes. The heater ticked. The sun disappeared behind the mountains. Her voice was older, so was mine. Some distances can't be crossed with one call, but it was a start. I made it 2 more days before Travis showed up at my ranch. I was in the barn fixing a gate hinge when I heard the engine, not the rattle of a work truck, something smooth and expensive. Through the gap in the barn door, I watched a black Mercedes SUV roll up my driveway like it owned the place. Like it already owned the place. Travis got out first. Designer jeans, leather jacket that probably cost more than my monthly feed bill, boots so clean they could have just come out of the box. The kind of man who thinks ranch wear is a costume you put on to play cowboy. Then Diane stepped out of the passenger side. That's what stopped me cold. Not Travis being here, I'd expected that eventually, but Diane, standing next to him, on my land, wearing a coat I'd never seen before, camel-colored wool that looked soft and expensive. I walked out slow, let the barn door swing shut behind me. The wind had picked up, carrying the smell of diesel and cold earth and manure. Real ranch smells, not cologne and leather seats. Earl, Travis smiled, white teeth, practiced charm. He extended his hand. I didn't take it. His smile didn't falter. He dropped his hand, gestured around like he was already giving a tour. Beautiful property. 640 acres, right? Prime location for development. Not for sale. And everything's for sale at the right price. He pulled a folder from his SUV, those same blueprints I'd seen at the club. I'm prepared to offer you $1.2 million. That's generous for marginal pasture land. This land's worth $3 million, and like I said, it's not for sale. Travis tilted his head. Earl, let's be reasonable. June 1st, you owe the county $28,000. You don't have it. I've seen your financials. You've seen my what? He waved his hand. Public record, tax assessments. You can't make that payment. The county will file a lien. Then I'll buy it at auction for a fraction of what I'm offering now. He stepped closer. I'm giving you dignity here. A chance to walk away with something. The metal taste of rage filled my mouth. Get off my property. Dad. Diane finally spoke. Her voice was quiet, uncertain. She wouldn't meet my eyes. You don't get to call me that anymore. She flinched. Good. Travis put his hand on her shoulder. Possessive, protective, on my land, with my wife. Earl, there's no need for hostility. This is a business transaction. Business. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You seduced my wife, used her to steal my land, and you want to call it business. I prefer to think of it as mutually beneficial opportunity. Diane wants a different life. You want to avoid public humiliation. I want to build something that actually contributes to the economy. He gestured at my barn, my cattle, everything my granddad built. This is dying, Earl. Small ranches like yours, they're obsolete. You're just delaying the inevitable. I looked at Diane, really looked at her. She was thinner than I remembered, tired. Her makeup was perfect, but something behind her eyes looked hollow. Is that what he told you? I asked her. That this place is dying? She opened her mouth, closed it. Earl, you have to understand. I don't have to understand anything. I turned back to Travis. You've got 30 seconds to get in that pretty truck and leave. After that, I'm calling Deputy Roy. Travis smiled again. For what? I haven't broken any laws. The rezone was properly filed. Diane's signature is notarized. Everything is completely legal. He paused. Though I should mention, there are other arrangements in motion. Tax assessments, liens, legal processes that don't require your cooperation. That a threat? That's a fact. He opened his truck door. My offer stands until the end of the month. After that, well, We'll let the county handle it. Diane climbed into the passenger seat. She looked back once. I couldn't read her expression. Didn't want to. They drove away, spraying gravel. I stood there until the sound of the engine faded completely, until there was nothing but wind and the distant lowing of cattle and the taste of bile in my throat. Diane stood next to him, not beside me, next to him, on my land. That night, there was a town hall meeting about the county budget. I almost didn't go, but Hank called and said I needed to show my face, let people see I wasn't hiding. The hall was packed, wooden benches, radiator clanking in the corner. That particular smell of old building and too many people in winter coats, 40, maybe 50 folks, most I'd known my whole life. The county clerk, thin woman named Pritchard with reading glasses on a chain, droned through the budget items, road maintenance, school funding, property tax adjustments. Item 7, she said, property reassessments and tax increases. The following properties have been rezoned to mixed-use commercial. She read off a list. 4 properties, total. Mine was the last. Hutchins Ranch, Section 12, previous assessment $4,200, new assessment $28,400. Heads turned. I felt every eye in that room, heard the whispers start up like wind through dry grass. Marcus's wife touched my arm. Earl, I'm so sorry. The clerk continued reading, but I stopped hearing the words, just sat there, staring at the back of the bench in front of me, feeling the weight of public exposure press down like a hand on my chest. After the meeting, people avoided me. Not hostile. Worse. That same pity from Molly's diner. Quick, sympathetic looks, and then finding someone else to talk to. Like, I was contagious. I was headed for my truck when Deputy Roy caught up with me. He's 55, lived here his whole life, good man who takes his job seriously. We'd been in 4-H together as kids. Earl, got a minute? We walked to the edge of the parking lot, away from the streetlights. The stars were out, bright and cold. You could see your breath. I've been looking into Travis Kern, Roy said quietly. Hank gave me his files. There's a pattern here. Vera mentioned the Rourke place, Mendez. It's more than that. Roy pulled out his phone, scrolled to some photos. Financial records, property transfers. 4 ranchers total in the last 3 years, same method every time. Man befriends the wife, or in 2 cases manipulates her into an affair. Wife signs documents, taxes spike, rancher can't pay, Kern buys at auction. The cold seeped through my jacket. 4. Rourke divorced after he lost the ranch, died of a heart attack 6 months later. Mendez had a stroke trying to work 3 jobs to keep up with payments. Lost the place anyway. Roy looked at me. The other 2 moved out of state, lost everything. So I'm victim number 5. You're the pattern that proves it's not coincidence. He put his phone away. I've got enough to open an investigation. Financial records showing suspicious activity. But Earl, I need time. 30, maybe 60 days to build a solid case. I've got 29 days. I know. That's the problem. He was quiet for a moment. There's something else. I found a wire transfer from Kern Development to J. Pritchard. That's our county clerk. $15,000, dated January 2nd. Day before your rezone was filed. He bribed her. I can't prove that yet. Could be legitimate. Consulting fee, service payment. There's ways to make it look legal. But it smells wrong. Roy shifted his weight. If I can prove bribery, the rezone gets voided. But the investigation takes time. And even if I void the rezone, you've still got tax issues, penalties for late payment. It gets complicated. A truck drove past, headlights sweeping across us. Someone headed home after the meeting, back to their life that wasn't falling apart. Why are you telling me this? Because you deserve to know what you're up against. Roy met my eyes. And because I grew up watching your dad help every struggling rancher in this county. Your family's been good to this community. That matters. Doesn't pay my tax bill. No, but it means you're not alone in this fight. He left me standing there in the parking lot. I got in my truck, started the engine, sat there letting it warm up. Through the windshield, I could see the mountains, black shapes against the starlit sky. 4 ranchers, 4 wives, 4 tax liens. I wasn't special. I was a number, and Travis Kern had gotten away with it every single time. The next morning, I drove to the stockgrowers' bank to withdraw $500, cash. I'd been counting it in my head all night. What I could spare, what I needed to hold back for feed and fuel and the ticking clock of that tax bill. The bank smelled like carpet cleaner and the burnt coffee they keep in the waiting area. Vera saw me from her office and waved me back, but I shook my head. This transaction needed to be at the teller window, public, on the record. I stood in line behind Old Man Crenshaw's grandson, Tommy, I think his name is, mid-20s, wearing a Carhartt jacket with paint stains and work boots that'd seen real use. He was talking to the teller in that low voice people use when they're embarrassed. I just need to know the balance on my granddad's account. The teller typed something. Her face went careful. Mr. Crenshaw, the account shows a negative balance of $473. There's an outstanding check to High Plains Medical Supply for the oxygen concentrator rental? How much? $512. Tommy's shoulders dropped. He ran his hand through his hair. Okay, I'll figure something out. Can you hold that check for a few days? I can try, but the medical supply company has been calling. I stepped forward. Put it on my account. They both turned. Tommy's face went red. Mr. Hutchins, I can't. Your granddad lent me his tractor in '98 when mine threw a rod during haying season. Saved my whole crop that year. I pulled out my checkbook. Call it even. That was 27 years ago, and I remember it like yesterday. I wrote the check, $500 I couldn't spare, handed it to the teller. Cover the oxygen bill and put whatever's left in his account. The teller looked between us, then processed it without another word. Tommy stood there, his throat working. Mr. Hutchins, thank you. God, thank you. He needs that oxygen. Doctor said without it. He stopped. I'm working 3 jobs, but it's not enough, and don't. I put my hand on his shoulder. Don't explain. Just take care of your granddad. He nodded, shook my hand hard enough to hurt. When he left, his eyes were wet. I finished my business and walked out to the parking lot. The sun was out, weak winter sun that didn't do much to cut the cold. Ice was starting to melt in patches, leaving putty frozen mud underneath. I sat in my truck for a minute, checking my account balance on the receipt. The number was worse than I wanted to think about. But Old Man Crenshaw would have his oxygen. That had to count for something. I couldn't save my marriage. Maybe I could save a man's dignity. Sarah arrived that evening. I'd been watching the clock since noon, nervous in a way I hadn't felt in years. 47 years I'd lived on this land, and I was nervous about my own daughter coming home. Her Subaru came up the drive around 6. City car, all-wheel drive, but not built for ranch roads. It was mud-splattered by the time she parked. I met her on the porch. We stood there for a second, neither of us knowing quite what to do. Then she hugged me, quick and tight. Hi, Dad. Sarah. She'd cut her hair shorter, had lines around her eyes I didn't remember, but she still had that way of standing with her chin up, like she was ready to argue with the world. We went inside. She had 2 bags, 1 suitcase, 1 briefcase stuffed with folders, set them both on the kitchen table. Coffee? I asked. Please. I made a pot while she pulled out documents, legal papers, property records, pages and pages of things I didn't understand. She spread them across the table like she was preparing for battle. Okay, she said when I set a mug in front of her. I've been reviewing Montana property law, specifically statutes on joint property ownership and rezone requirements. She pulled out 1 sheet. Here's the thing. Montana requires both spouses notarize signatures for any property rezone if the property is jointly owned. It's not jointly owned. The deed's in my name. I bought it before we married. Exactly. She tapped the paper. Which means Mom's signature alone shouldn't have been sufficient. The clerk should have required yours too, or rejected the filing entirely. Something like hope flickered. So we can fight it? Yes. She met my eyes. But Dad, court takes 60 days minimum. You've got 28. Right. She pulled out another folder. So we need a 2-track strategy. Fight the rezone and raise the tax money, both at once. Hank's truck pulled up outside. I'd called him after Sarah confirmed she was coming. He knocked once and came in, bringing cold air and the smell of hay with him. Ma'am, he nodded to Sarah. Name's Hank Dorsey, neighbor. Sarah Hutchins, the daughter who left. Daughter who's here now. Hank sat down. That's what matters. The 3 of us bent over those papers, and for the first time in weeks, I felt like maybe, just maybe, I wasn't drowning alone. Sarah's finger traced a line on the document. This is illegal. We can void it. I asked the only question that mattered. How fast? She looked up. Her eyes were sad. Not fast enough. The newspaper came out 3 days later. I was at Molly's diner, decided I wasn't going to hide anymore, wasn't going to give this town the satisfaction of seeing me skulk around. Marcus was there, and a few of the other ranchers. Morning crowd, same as always. The paper sat on the counter, front page, below the fold. A photo of my ranch taken from the road, unflattering angle that made the barn look half collapsed and the pastures look empty. Headline read, "Local rancher behind on property taxes." I picked it up, read it standing there while my coffee went cold. The article said I'd been delinquent on property taxes for 3 years, said the county had been patient but was now forced to take action. Said questions were being raised about my ability to manage the property. Every word was careful, legally defensible, and completely false. At the bottom, sources close to the situation suggest mismanagement and poor financial planning have led to the current crisis. Sources. I knew exactly who the source was. Marcus came up beside me. "Earl, that true? You been hiding debt?" "Not a word of it." "Then why would they print it?" "Because Travis Kern wants people to think I deserve what's coming." The diner had gone quiet again, that same damn silence from before. But this time, there was something else underneath it. Not just pity, doubt. I threw a $5 bill on the counter and walked out. By afternoon, my phone had 6 messages. People I'd known for decades, suddenly questioning everything. Asking if I needed help, asking if the rumors were true. That particular tone that means they've already decided you're guilty and they're just waiting for you to confirm it. Pastor Jim Waverly called around 3. "Earl, I'm hearing some concerning things. I think we should talk." "About what?" "About your situation. About whether you've been entirely forthcoming with people." His voice had that pastoral, careful quality. "I want to help, but I need to understand the full picture." "The full picture is Travis Kern planted a lie, and you believed it." "Earl," I hung up. Sarah found me in the barn an hour later. I was fixing the same gate hinge I'd been working on for 3 days, taking it apart and putting it back together because my hands needed something to do. "Dad?" "Saw the paper." "Yeah." She leaned against the stall door. "I've been getting calls too, from people I haven't talked to since high school. Everyone wants to know if it's true." "What did you tell them?" "That my father's been paying his taxes on time for 47 years, and anyone who believes a real estate developer over him is an idiot." She paused, though I used more professional language. Despite everything, I almost smiled. "Hank called," she said. "He wants to organize a community meeting, open up your books, show everyone the truth. Transparency as a defense. Let them see how broke I am. Let them see you've got nothing to hide." She came closer. "Dad, Travis is attacking your character because he can't attack your case. That's what people do when they're scared." "He doesn't seem scared." "Then he's stupid, because Deputy Roy called me this morning." She pulled out her phone, showed me a screenshot. "Wire transfer January 2nd. $15,000 from Kern Development LLC to J. Pritchard. That's our county clerk." The gate hinge forgotten, I stared at the image. "Roy showed you this?" "He filed a motion this afternoon, petition to void the rezone based on evidence of bribery." She scrolled to another image. "And I filed a supporting brief. Montana state law is very clear about corruption in public office." "How long until we know?" "Judge could rule as early as next week, but there's a complication." She put her phone away. "Even if the rezone is voided, you've still got tax issues. The original $4,000 plus penalties for late payment, the system marked you late when the rezone went through, and that doesn't automatically clear. We're looking at about $12,000 total." $12,000. Better than 28. Still impossible. "And there's something else," Sarah said quietly. "I checked the county records this afternoon. Travis filed an emergency tax lien notice. If you can't pay by June 1st, he's positioned himself as first in line to buy the property at auction." That legal?" "Unfortunately, yes. He's covering all his bases." She was quiet for a moment. "He knew we'd figure out the bribery eventually. This is his backup plan." The barn smelled like hay and old wood and decades of work. Granddad's initials were carved in the beam above us, JH 1947. "Sarah, I want you to know something. Even if we lose this place, even if I lose everything, I'm glad you came home." Her eyes got bright. "We're not losing it." "But if we do, we're not." She said it fierce, like she could make it true through sheer force of will. "Roy's building his case. I'm fighting the rezone. Hank's organizing support. And you," she pointed at me, "you're going to stand up at that community meeting and show everyone exactly who you are, not who Travis says you are." I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to believe her. Pastor Jim thinks I'm lying. Then Pastor Jim can go to hell. She softened. Dad, people are scared. Change is coming, whether they want it or not. Travis represents money and progress and all the things small towns think they need. But you represent something else. Integrity, legacy, that matters to people. We just have to remind them. Through the barn door, I could see the sun starting to set. The temperature was dropping, but the ice on the water trough had melted that afternoon. Small thing. But spring was coming, whether we were ready or not. Travis fought dirty. I could too, but Hank's voice was in my head from a conversation years ago. You can't out-dirty a snake and keep your soul. So maybe I'd fight clean and hope that counted for something. The community meeting was set for Thursday night at the church basement. Hank organized it, Sarah prepared the documents. All I had to do was show up and be honest. But Wednesday night, alone in the barn at midnight, I wasn't sure honest was enough. I'd come out here to think, to get away from the house that still smelled like Diane's perfume, even though she'd been gone 2 weeks. The barn was cold, just one bulb burning overhead, casting shadows that moved when the wind pushed through the gaps in the walls. I was holding Granddad's fence pliers, old steel, worn smooth from decades of use. His initials were etched in the handle, J.H., carved with a pocket knife probably during a slow afternoon fixing wire. I remembered him teaching me to mend fence when I was 8 years old. Wire breaks, he'd said. You fix it. Simple as that. But nothing was simple anymore. My phone sat on the workbench. Travis's number was in there from when he'd called earlier, leaving a message I hadn't returned. Earl, my offer still stands. $1.2 million. You walk away with dignity. Call me. I could call him right now, accept the buyout, end this fight before the community meeting, before the judgment in people's eyes, before the inevitable loss that felt like it was coming, whether I wanted to admit it or not. Take the money, start over somewhere else. Let someone else worry about property taxes and legal battles and wives who betray you. I picked up my phone, put it down, picked it up again. My hands were shaking. 67 years old, and my hands were shaking like a kid's. I thought about Granddad homesteading this place in 1947, post-war. Nothing but determination and a belief that hard work meant something. He'd built the barn himself, board by board, dug the well, strung every fence line, put his initials in that beam up there because he wanted some part of himself to last beyond his years. What would he say if he could see me now? Ready to sell to a developer who'd bulldoze everything and put up luxury cabins for rich people? From California? But then again, what good was holding on to land if it destroyed me in the process? If it cost me what was left of my relationship with Sarah? If it turned me into something bitter and broken? Maybe losing with grace was wiser than winning with bitterness. Or maybe that was just cowardice talking. I set the pliers down, looked up at those initials carved in the beam, J.H. They'd been there longer than I'd been alive. They'd be there after I was gone, assuming there was still a barn standing. What do I do? I said out loud. Talking to a dead man, talking to shadows. Do I fight or do I quit? The wind answered, that particular whistle through Gapwood, the same sound I'd heard every winter morning for 47 years. I thought about Tommy Crenshaw at the bank. The way his shoulders had dropped when he couldn't pay for his granddad's oxygen. The way his face had changed when I'd covered it. I thought about Hank mortgaging his own place to help with my tax bill. $5,000 he didn't have to spare. I thought about Sarah driving 10 hours from Seattle, spreading legal papers across my kitchen table, saying we're not losing it like she could will it into truth. I thought about Deputy Roy building a case on his own time. Vera staying late at the bank to help me understand the numbers. Marcus standing beside me at the diner even when everyone else looked away. This wasn't just about me anymore. Maybe it never had been. I put the phone in my pocket without calling Travis, hung the pliers back on their hook, turned off the light. The barn went dark except for moonlight through the window. I could see the outline of my truck in the driveway. Beyond that, pasture land stretching to the ridgeline. 640 acres. Granddad's legacy, my legacy, maybe someday Sarah's, if there was anything left to pass on. I walked back to the house. It was cold inside. I'd let the heat drop to save money. I made coffee, even though it was past midnight. Sat at the kitchen table where Sarah had spread all those legal papers. One of the documents caught my eye, the rezone filing. Diane's signature swirled across the bottom. I stared at it for a long time. She'd signed away our life together for what? The promise of something better? Excitement? A man who wore designer boots and drove a Mercedes? I felt sorry for her. Really, genuinely sorry. Because she'd traded something real for something that was already crumbling. Travis would drop her the second this went south. Men like him always did. And she'd be left with nothing. No husband, no home, no identity. At least I still had mine. The coffee was bad. Water heater definitely going out. But I drank it anyway, watching the moonlight move across the floor as the earth turned. By the time the sun came up, I knew what I had to do. Thursday evening, the church basement was packed. Folding tables set up in rows, coffee urn in the corner bubbling and hissing. That particular smell of old building and too many people in winter coats not quite dry from melting snow. Hank stood at the front, calling the meeting to order. 50 people, maybe more. I recognized almost every face. Ranchers I'd worked beside, shop owners from town, people I'd gone to school with, served on committees with, helped during hard times and been helped by in return. And there, in the back corner, I saw Travis. He'd actually shown up, leaning against the wall with his arms crossed, that same confident smile. Diane wasn't with him. "Thank you all for coming," Hank said. His voice carried that auctioneer's boom, even when he was trying to be conversational. "We're here tonight because a man's character is being questioned. Earl Hutchins has been accused of mismanaging his property and hiding debt. Tonight, he's going to show you the truth." I stood up, walked to the front. My knees were stiff from sitting, but I kept my back straight, looked out at all those faces. "I've ranched this land for 47 years, I started. My dad before me for 32. My granddad homesteaded it in 1947. That's 96 years the Hutchins family has worked this ground. Paid our taxes on time. Been good neighbors. Helped when we could." I nodded to Vera. She passed out copies of my tax records. Every year for the last decade. Paid in full, on time. "That newspaper article said I was 3 years behind. That's a lie. You can see for yourself." I let them look, heard the papers rustling. What the article didn't mention is that my property was rezoned without my knowledge or consent, by my wife and a developer who saw an opportunity. Murmurs through the crowd, some sympathetic, some skeptical. "I'm not asking for pity. I'm asking for time. Deputy Roy's investigating bribery charges against the county clerk. My daughter," I gestured to Sarah in the front row, "is fighting the rezone on legal grounds. What I need from this community is simple. Don't believe the lies. And if you can spare anything toward my tax bill, even $20, it would help." A hand went up in the middle. Tommy Crenshaw's grandson, standing. "Mr. Hutchins paid my granddad's medical bills last week," Tommy said. $500 he didn't have to spare. Didn't ask for anything in return. Didn't even want thanks." He looked around at the crowd. "That's who this man is." Another hand. Marcus. "Earl shared his water rights during the drought in 19. Saved 3 ranches, including mine. Never asked for a dime." Another. "Helped me rebuild my barn after the storm in 16. Lent me his tractor when mine broke down. Sat with my wife at the hospital when she was dying. Didn't leave until I got there." One after another. Stories I'd forgotten. Small kindnesses that hadn't seemed like much at the time. But they'd mattered to people. They'd remembered. Hank pulled out a clipboard. "Anyone who wants to pledge toward Earl's tax bill can sign here. No amount too small. We've already got $11,400 committed. We need $800 more to cover the gap." People started standing, coming forward. A rancher's wife pledged $200. A shop owner pledged $50. The pastor, the same one who'd questioned me on the phone, pledged $300 and apologized. I watched the numbers climb. $500, $600, $750. Tommy Crenshaw walked up. "I can't pledge money, Mr. Hutchins, but I can pledge labor. Whatever you need. Fences, feeding, anything. That's worth more than money, son." The pledges hit 800, then 1,000. People were giving more than the gap, giving extra for buffer, for security, for whatever came next. I looked at the back of the room. Travis was gone. Slipped out sometime during the testimonies. The space where he'd been standing was empty. When the meeting ended, people came up to shake my hand. Not pity anymore. Solidarity, partnership, the thing you build over decades of showing up, being decent, doing the work. Sarah hugged me when the crowd thinned. "See," she whispered. "I told you." Hank clapped my shoulder. "Neighbors help neighbors. That's how it works." Vera handed me the final tally. $12,600. More than enough to cover the tax bill with the penalties. More than enough to prove Travis Kern hadn't broken me. We walked out into the spring night. It was warmer than it had been in months. The ice on the parking lot had melted into puddles that reflected stars. The air smelled different, not frozen anymore, like Earth getting ready to wake up. "Dad," Sarah said, "I've been thinking about maybe moving back. Not permanently, but I could work remote. help you modernize the ranch operations, sustainable tourism, educational programs. There's grants for that kind of thing. I looked at her. My daughter, my legacy, not the land, her. I'd like that, I said. We drove home in separate vehicles, my truck and her Subaru, headlights cutting through the dark. When we got to the ranch, I walked out to the fence line one more time. Tested the wire tension with my glove, still tight. Behind me, the house had lights on, Sarah making coffee, planning the future. Ahead of me, 640 acres stretching to the ridgeline. Not gone yet, maybe never would be. The fight wasn't over, but I wasn't fighting alone anymore. And that counted for something. The hearing was set for the following Tuesday at the county courthouse, Judge Morrison presiding. Sarah had prepared everything: motions, briefs, evidence packages, organized in folders with color-coded tabs. She'd spent 3 nights at my kitchen table, surviving on coffee and determination. The courthouse smelled like old wood and floor polish. High ceilings, American flag in the corner, rows of wooden benches that creaked when you sat down. The place was packed. Word had spread. People wanted to see how this ended. Hank sat beside me in the front row. Sarah was at the plaintiff's table in a suit I'd never seen before, looking every bit the lawyer she'd become. Professional, confident, nothing like the girl who'd left here 5 years ago swearing she'd never come back. Travis sat on the opposite side with his attorney, slick man in an expensive suit, the kind that probably charged $500 an hour. Travis looked calm, too calm, like he'd already won and was just here for the formality. Diane wasn't there. I'd heard through the grapevine she'd moved back to her sister's place in Billings. Travis had stopped returning her calls 3 days after the community meeting. Judge Morrison entered. We all stood. She was 70, gray hair pulled back severe, reading glasses on a chain. She'd been on the bench 30 years. Knew every rancher in the county, knew their parents too. Be seated. She shuffled papers. We're here regarding petition to void property rezone for Hutchins Ranch, Section 12, and related tax assessment. Ms. Hutchins, you're representing the plaintiff. Sarah stood. Yes, Your Honor. Proceed. Sarah laid it out clean and methodical. Montana state law requiring both spouses' signatures for jointly owned property rezoning. Documentation proving the property was solely in Earl Hutchins' name, purchased prior to marriage. The rezone filing that contained only Diane's signature. The clerk should have rejected this filing, Sarah said. It does not meet the legal standard. The rezone is invalid on its face. Travis's lawyer objected, argued that Diane had power of attorney for property matters, that the signatures were properly notarized, that everything was procedurally correct. Sarah countered with the power of attorney documents, which showed limitations specifically excluding property transfers or zoning changes. Then she pulled out the blueprint, the one I'd seen that night at the club, spilling out of Travis's folder. She'd gotten it from Deputy Roy's evidence file. This document, Sarah said, holding it up, is dated December 20th, 6 weeks before the rezone filing. It shows preliminary development plans for the Hutchins property. She set it on the evidence table. It proves premeditation. Mr. Kern wasn't responding to an opportunity. He created one. Judge Morrison leaned forward. Where did you obtain this? From Mr. Kern's vehicle, Your Honor, photographed by Mr. Hutchins on January 15th at the Broken Spur Country Club. The judge looked at me. Mr. Hutchins, you took this photograph. No, Your Honor. I saw the documents. My daughter had someone else photograph them later for evidence. A small lie, but Sarah had coached me on what to say. The judge didn't look convinced, but she let it slide. Then Deputy Roy took the stand. He was in uniform, looking uncomfortable in the formal setting, but his testimony was solid, clear. 4 ranchers targeted over 3 years, same pattern every time. Mr. Kern would befriend the spouse, Roy said, gain their trust, in 2 cases initiate romantic relationships, then manipulate them into signing documents. Tax assessments would spike. Ranchers couldn't pay. Kern Development would buy at auction. And you have evidence of this pattern? Yes, ma'am. Roy presented his files. Property records, transfer documents, a timeline showing the progression of each case. Travis's lawyer tried to argue it was coincidence. Business savvy, not criminal intent. Then Roy dropped it, the wire transfer. January 2nd of this year, Roy said. $15,000 transferred from Kern Development LLC to J. Pritchard, County Clerk, the same clerk who processed the Hutchins rezone filing the next day. The courtroom went silent, that particular kind of silence where everyone stops breathing at once. Mr. Pritchard has been placed on administrative leave pending investigation, Roy continued. I have statements from 2 other property owners who reported being approached by Mr. Kern after suspicious tax increases. The pattern is clear, Your Honor. This isn't business, it's a scheme. Judge Morrison studied the bank records. Her face gave nothing away, but I saw her jaw tighten. Travis's lawyer asked for a recess. The judge denied it. Call your next witness, by Sabah, she said to Sarah. The plaintiff calls Tommy Crenshaw. Tommy came forward, nervous in clean jeans and a button-down shirt. He told the story of the medical bill, how I'd paid when I couldn't afford to, how that showed character. Then Marcus testified, the drought, the water rights, years of being a good neighbor. Then Vera from the bank, my tax payment history, clean record going back decades, one after another, the community showing up saying, this man is who he says he is. When the last witness finished, Judge Morrison removed her glasses, rubbed her eyes, put them back on. I've heard enough, she said. The rezone filing is void. It was improperly processed, and there's sufficient evidence of corruption to warrant further investigation. Mr. Kern, you and your company are hereby barred from any further property transactions in this county pending the outcome of criminal proceedings. Travis's face went white. His lawyer stood, objecting, but the judge waved him down. Mr. Hutchins, she looked at me, your property taxes revert to the original assessment of $4,200. However, there are penalties for late payment that the system automatically applied. Those amount to approximately $3,000. You'll need to pay $7,200 total by June 1st. And it's $7,000, not $12, not $28, $7. With the community pledges, I could cover it easily. Additionally, the judge continued, I'm ordering Mr. Kern's company to pay your legal fees, $3,000. That should help with your financial situation. The gavel fell. It was over. People erupted behind me. Not quite cheering, this was a courtroom, but I heard the relief, the satisfaction, the sense that something had gone right for once. Sarah turned around. Her eyes were shining. We won. You won, I said. I just sat here. No. She shook her head. We won. All of us. Travis and his lawyer left through the side door, fast, heads down. I watched them go and felt nothing, not triumph, not satisfaction, just tired, just empty. Victory was supposed to taste sweet. This tasted like ash. I met with Hank's son 3 days after the hearing. His name is Daniel, 38, runs cattle on the property adjacent to Hank's. Good man who learned ranching the right way. We sat in Vera's office at the bank, papers spread between us, morning light coming through the window. 200 acres, as I said. The north pasture, running from the creek bed to the county road. Daniel nodded slowly. That's prime grazing land, Mr. Hutchins. I know it, and I'm asking $50,000. That's fair value, maybe even low. But I want it to stay in the community. Want someone who'll work it right. He looked at the survey map Vera had pulled, traced the boundary with his finger. I can do 50. Got it saved for expanding my operation anyway. He met my eyes. But you sure about this? Selling off part of your legacy? My legacy isn't measured in acres anymore. I signed the preliminary agreement. It's measured in whether I can look myself in the mirror, whether my granddad would be ashamed of what I became trying to hold on to what he built. We shook hands. His grip was firm, calloused, honest, the handshake of a man who'd honor the land. I'll take care of it, he said, like it was my own granddad's. I know you will. That's why I'm selling to you. Vera processed the paperwork. The $50,000 would cover the tax bill, $7,200, with money left over to repay Hank and the community members who'd pledged, plus a cushion for operating expenses. The $3,000 in legal fees from Travis would go toward fixing the water heater and the fence that needed proper mending. When Daniel left, I sat there for a minute, staring at the deed, watching Vera notarize my signature that gave away a quarter of what I'd spent 47 years maintaining. Earl, Vera's voice was soft. You're doing the right thing. Doesn't feel right. Feels like losing. You're surviving. That's different than losing. She filed the papers in her drawer. And you're surviving with your integrity intact. That's winning, even if it doesn't feel like it yet. I pulled off my work gloves, set them on her desk, stared at them for a moment. Worn leather, thin at the fingertips, Granddad's initials worn almost smooth on the strap. Then I put them back on. Time to get back to work, I said. The next morning I walked the fence line. The new fence line. 440 acres instead of 640. The wire ran from the homestead to the south ridge, then cut east where it used to keep going north. The boundary was shorter now. The walk took less time. But the wire was tight. I'd spent 2 days repairing it, replacing the sections that had sagged, checking every post, every splice. The work was good, solid, the kind of work Granddad would have approved. The sun was coming up, painting the sky pink and orange. 52 degrees. Spring had arrived for real now. The frozen mud had given way to soft earth that smelled rich and alive. Green grass was starting to show through the brown. The meadowlarks had returned. I could hear them singing in the distance, that clear rising call that means winter's over. A calf followed me. The one born breech back in April, the one I'd saved during a 20-hour shift when I was too exhausted to think straight. She had a white blaze on her forehead, curious eyes, no fear. She bounded along beside me like a dog. "Morning, little one," I said. "Welcome to what's left." She nuzzled my glove, looking for treats I didn't have. I stopped at the new north boundary, stood there looking at the land that wasn't mine anymore. Daniel's cattle were already grazing there. I could see them in the distance, red bodies against green grass. He was taking care of it, doing it right. It hurt to look at, not the sharp pain of the night I saw Diane kissing Travis. Different, duller, like the ache of an old injury that's healed wrong but you've learned to live with. I tested the fence wire one more time, held firm, good tension. The barbs caught the morning light. Behind me, the homestead was visible. Smoke coming from the chimney. Sarah had gotten up early, started a fire, put coffee on. She'd been here 2 weeks now, working remote, talking about maybe staying through summer, maybe longer. We'd started planning. Sustainable tourism, she called it. Educational ranch visits for school groups, workshops on fence mending and cattle management. There were grants available, she said, ways to make a smaller operation viable. "You've got knowledge people want," she'd told me last night over dinner. "Teach them, that's legacy too." Maybe she was right. Maybe legacy wasn't just land and acres and fence posts with your granddad's initials. Maybe it was passing on what you knew, making sure the skills didn't die even if the property got smaller. The calf bumped my leg. I scratched behind her ears. "You're going to be all right," I told her. "We all are. Just going to be different, that's all." I turned back toward the house. Started walking. The calf followed for a bit, then got distracted by something in the grass and bounded off. The lilac bush by the porch was blooming. Diane had planted it 20 years ago, back when we still talked about the future like it was something we'd share. I'd thought about digging it up, removing that reminder. But this morning, with the purple flowers bright against the old wood siding, I decided to let it stay. Not everything from the past had to be erased. Some things could just exist, reminders of what was, without judgment, without pain, just there. I climbed the porch steps. My thermos sat on the railing where I'd left it, still warm. I picked it up, took a sip. The coffee tasted clean, clear. The water heater was fixed. Through the window, I could see Sarah at the kitchen table, laptop open, talking on the phone, probably to some grant foundation or agricultural nonprofit, planning our future, our smaller, harder, more honest future. 440 acres stretched out before me, not as much as Granddad started with, not as much as I'd hoped to pass on, but mine, paid for, fought for, kept with integrity, intact. The sun cleared the ridge. Full morning now, the meadowlarks were singing louder. The calf had found her mother and was nursing. The cattle were moving toward the water tank I'd filled at dawn. Somewhere in town, Travis Kern was probably talking to lawyers. Diane was probably trying to figure out what came next. Pastor Jim was probably preparing Sunday's sermon. The world was turning same as it always did, and I was here, still here, on land that would outlive me, with initials carved in the barn beam that would outlast us all. I drank my coffee, watched the sun rise over my 440 acres. Some men measure success by acres. I measure it by mornings like this. I'm telling you this story 6 months later. Early fall now, the kind of morning where the air's got a bite to it, but the sun's still warm on your face. Folks ask if I regret fighting. I tell them I regret marrying the wrong woman. But I don't regret keeping what's mine. Diane wanted more. Travis wanted easy money. I just wanted to wake up and know the land under my boots was mine. That's not asking much. Shouldn't be, anyway. Some battles you win by losing less than the other guy wanted you to lose. That's what this was. I gave up 200 acres, but I kept my soul, kept my relationship with Sarah, kept the respect of my community. Travis got arrested, paid out $40,000 in fines and legal settlements, lost his business license in 3 counties. Diane's living in Billings, working retail, alone. I don't take satisfaction in that, just notice it, the way you notice weather changing. Hank's son is running good cattle on that north pasture. I can see them from my porch in the evenings. It's not the same as it being mine. But it's right. The land's being worked by someone who respects it. That matters. Sarah visits once a month now, sometimes twice, brings her partner, talks about maybe moving back permanent, teaching at the community college. We're working on that education program. Had our first school group out last week. 18 kids learning to mend fence. You should have seen their faces when they got the wire tension right. I'm 67 years old. This land will outlive me, but while I'm here, it's ours, mine and Granddad's and whoever comes next. The calf from spring is nearly full grown now. Still follows me sometimes during fence checks. Old habits. Evening's coming on. I got coffee on the porch, meadowlarks settling down for night, the sun setting over 440 acres of honest ground. Some men leave empires. I'll leave a tight fence and a clear conscience. That's enough.